statistic this past week that was rather fascinating. The number of people in their 20s who've moved back into their parents' home. It's like 35%.
Really? Yeah. Because of the pandemic, you think?
Correct.
Yeah.
But it started before that. I think a lot of it's got to do with student debt too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somehow I don't think that would be a wonderful thing to spend 4 years going to school and then say, you know what, I'm going back to mom and dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And have to pay off those bills for the next 15 to 20 years.
Yeah, my son moved back from college, and I know he's hating every minute of being back in the house. Other than the free food,
right?
Access to free beer. He's 21. Right. So.
Well, you figure at this time, in history, your son's in a bad spot, in terms of being able to make a career, and
look at this generation. They had to go through the Great Recession. Now they're going through this. Makes it a hard time to be, growing up and go off and launch a career and all that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a niece who just graduated and she's having a hell of a time trying to find a job. Because, all of the resumes she's filing are online, and then there's online interviews, and, it's not like you can talk to a person in their office and get some sense of feedback from them. It's tough.
That's got to be hard. Yeah, a friend of mine just last night we went out and celebrated. She got a job in North Carolina from Michigan, and somehow did that whole process. And man, she was excited because expecting it to be almost impossible, but landed in a great company. And
correct.
But all the pictures of the office, because they were trying to show where she's going to work, all the pictures were empty rooms because they're all working remotely. So
yeah,
right.
But look cool.
Someday you'll be here.
Yeah.
I like hearing those good stories or good news stories, Mark. We need more things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's exciting. It's a tough time to change careers. That's for sure. But graduating seniors is when you feel for.
Okay.
Right.
Hey, Mark, I can't help but notice that land speed record Cobalt picture on your wall.
Yeah,
there.
you like that?
I went out to Bonneville in 2005 or 2006 when you guys were running that belly tank out there. It was the year that the British company that does the diesels set the record out there, and was within your whole compound there for quite a while, talking to engineers. That was quite an effort.
Yeah, that man, you bring back some good memories. That was I actually designed that car, and drove it to I think 3 records. Don Sherman drove it. He broke my first record. He held it for a year. Then I broke it, and then some privateer broke it with that in that class. But that belly tanker was just so cool. What a tie back to SoCal Speed Shop, Alex Exadia. It was just great times. There's no doubt.
Those belly tankers, to me, are some of the coolest looking cars of all time.
Yeah. Yeah, and we did something really unique. That the underpinnings of that, I was racing Formula cars at the time. And so the underpinnings, that's actually a Formula Ford 2000 chassis, Van Diemen chassis. I reconfigured the suspension points, whatever, so that it was more for going straight, and a custom roll cage, etc., with our Ecotec engine and Hewlin gearbox. And at first everybody looked at it and they're like, whoa, that's too frail. Why would you take that out and put, everything out there? Weight is your friend. But we did something totally different, and the suspension settings and everything on that vehicle was so stable. it was just unbelievably stable on the salt.
How fast did you go?
I think the fastest in that vehicle was like I'm going to say 226 or something like that. And then the Cobalt, the one behind you, was, I think out the back was 249.4. I still have the record in that class with a 2-liter turbo that makes about 1,300 horsepower. That record still stands, and it's at 246 something, I think. Yeah, 246.
So you're a member of the vaunted Bonneville 200 mile per hour club.
Yeah, I was going to wear my hat, but
oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I got inducted the same time as Andy Green did when he was driving that I think that diesel.
Yeah. Diesel
Streamliner
Max.
you're talking about.
Diesel
Yeah.
Max, right. Yep.
Yeah.
Is it
Funny.
JCB?
JCB. That's
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Good memory. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I went the first record in the Lake Stir was only like 186, and I went out to dinner that night with Andy Green, the world's fastest man, and talk about humbling. He's like, "Oh, so what's your record?" I'm like, "Lawrence 86." I've never been so high and on top of the world, too humbled and embarrassed in the same day.
That's great.
Yeah.
Hey, look, let's get the show officially started. This is Autoline After Hours with John McElroy and Gary Vasilash, episode 518 for July 23rd of 2020. GM Defense, getting back to the arsenal of democracy. Watch Autoline After Hours live at Autoline.tv every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 12 p.m. Pacific. You can subscribe to this podcast for free by searching for Autoline in iTunes, Stitcher, or YouTube.
Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, your journey, our passion, and by Borg Warner, propulsion solutions that support a clean, energy-efficient world.
Gary, how you be?
Good, John. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Excellent. So, it occurs to me that one of the things that we sort of take for granted is the fact that, we are living in a time that 100 years from now, people will be writing about the auto industry. I'm not talking about COVID or any of that sort of thing. I'm talking about, the developments that are going on. And I found it very curious that there were two things that happened at the turn of the 20th century that were just 2 years apart, which were rather astonishing. In 1901, Ransom E. Olds received the patent for the curved dash vehicle that sort of revolutionized things to come afterwards. And 2 years later, in 1903, Ford delivered the first Model A. I mean, on this date. And so I just wonder, looking, when the people in the future look back at this period, will they be as astonished as I think we should be for things like that?
Well, they'll be astonished to say that, Autoline After Hours was on the same date as the Curved Dash Olds and the first Ford Model A.
Yeah, let's hope.
Yeah, let's hope. That's right. Hey, let's bring in our colleague, Lindsay Brooke from SAE Engineering. Hello there, Lindsay.
Yes. Good afternoon, everybody.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you guys?
Good. It's been a long time since you've been on the show, and you've grown a beard in honor.
I know this is my COVID, bunker beard.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of that going around.
I know. It's a lot more maintenance than just shave it every day.
It looks good, Lindsay.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah. Hey, and then we've got to bring in our special guest for today, Mark Dickens, the Chief Engineer of GM Defense. Hello there, Mark.
Hey, hi, John. Hi, Gary. Hi, Lindsay.
Good.
Great to have you on the show.
So people who heard the show before the show started, I just want to set up this in a slightly different way. You have raced at Bonneville. Tell us about that, which will then lead us into the development of the vehicle that we'll talk about.
Sure. It's probably some of the best years of my life. I got called into, there was a team that we were working on with bringing back our four cylinders and trying to show how strong our four cylinders were. Mark Royce had this idea of taking it to Bonneville and putting it up against the world's four cylinders. And so, if you think about setting a world record out there, you have to go do it over 5 miles, and then go back the next morning with only like 2 hours of prep to go back to the same 5 miles, same mile segment. You have the average between those two to set a record. It's just brutal. It's a grueling place to test vehicles, engines, that is. And I had an awesome opportunity to design cars, lead the program, and drive to, I think it was like 6 land speed records over the the 4 or 5 year period that I was out there. So it was great.
So this was not GM Defense though. This was when you were at GM Advanced Engineering.
Correct. Yep.
But Mark, it sounds like you're a total gearhead.
Yeah, I got a foot in both camps, and that's one of the key things to make vehicles like the ISV that we'll be talking about happen, is taking things from our racing. I have responsibility for the high performance vehicles, racing, performance parts and accessories, and take those products and put them to like extreme tests and development. And then we can take those and move them over into the defense space. So it's that natural flow. We use racing to develop parts. I mean, it's true tech transfer from racing to our production cars, our performance parts, and now defense vehicles.
So you had to go. Go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, because we're talking GM Defense as if everybody knows about it, I don't think a lot of people know about it. Give it just a little thumbnail sketch of what GM Defense is about.
Yeah, so GM Defense, essentially General Motors Defense was sold off in the early 2000s, and we ended up bringing back the concept of defense. And I guess a lot of people ask, why would you do that? If you think about all the money and investment in R&D and technology that General Motors has in our 000 mission, it gives us the opportunity to bring research and development, high tech, and vehicle expertise to the defense industry. So, I think looking at that portfolio and the opportunities and talking with the DoD, there just looked like a great opportunity to bring in our technologies and expertise in defense. So we resurrected GM Defense. It's under the leadership of David Albritton. He's our president in DC, and he has been pulling together a strategy of how we can leverage all of these assets and all of this capability into the DoD.
So what are some of the things that you guys had done prior to the ISV program?
Yeah, so, it's interesting. We have a lot of, as zero emissions being our mission, we have made considerable investments in batteries, battery technology, fuel cells, and, safety is absolute key. And if you think about electrifying defense vehicles, safety, having been in a armored vehicle with a battery and electric drive motor, you want to have a safe battery. So, all that investment that we've had and effort we put into safety has really brought us to the forefront of discussions with the DoD. And we've been working with the NRL and Navy Research Lab, and we're really trying to transfer that knowledge, on how to develop batteries and how to electrify all the defense applications. So that was some of the early projects that we had. We had some work that we did with fuel cells as well. You may have seen the ZH2, which was a fuel cell derivative of a Colorado ZR2. We had some projects that we worked with the what used to be the TARDAC organization, so the advanced arm of the Army, now GVSC, and we were showcasing some of those technologies. Those were a lot of research and development work up front. And this is probably our first major contract to actually deliver vehicles.
Yeah, Mark, I was going to ask you about, I remember talking to Charlie Fries about that fuel cell program. Is that kind of backburnered right now, or is that still going on within GM Defense?
Oh, it continues on. And the Army is very interested in it too. But as you can imagine, the investment in JP8 fuel, diesel fuel, and the DoD, it's heavy. I mean, there's so much that's powered by JP8 that it's going to take long term to change the thinking of how do you get hydrogen in the battlefield, what's the infrastructure. So, it's a more of a long-term strategy than a short-term strategy.
Sure.
So for the ISV, which stands for I can't even say it, Infantry Squad Vehicle, I'll just say ISV from now on. It does have a diesel, right? But so you guys had to get into competition with a couple of other companies on getting the order from the Army. Can you talk a little bit about, what your competition was like and how you guys went about developing this?
Sure. It was I'm going to say a year and a half ago that we read about the program in FedBiz at the time as to, the look for, the need for a 9-passenger vehicle that's unarmored, that's, can carry soldiers in and out of battle fast. And we were working at the same time I had responsibility for the ZR2 Colorado and the ZR2 Bison, and also the Best in Desert race program. And we saw the requirements and thought, wow, what a direct fit of all of these parts and pieces that were commercial off-the-shelf parts, and put together a proposal. We had essentially, from the time we started to actually delivering our bid sample to the Army for testing, was 18 weeks. And that's from putting the pencils to the ground. And as you see the pictures of the vehicle, the body and the seating arrangement, there's nothing Colorado ZR2 about that. So the team pulled off a big win there and delivered our bid sample, our first prototype, to the Army. And they evaluated, I want to say, maybe 5 or 6 manufacturers at that time. And then we were selected as one of 3 companies to go forward to prototype. And the prototype phase, they asked for 2 vehicles that were production representative, and we delivered 2 vehicles to them. And those went through an entire battery of testing, soldier touch points, feedback from soldiers. And I will say, really excitingly, that the Army has put a huge emphasis on the soldiers' feedback on these. Price is important, but they're making certain that they get products in the soldiers' hands that are going to actually keep them safe, get them in and out of battle fast. So, those reviews and all that evaluations went really well for us. Put in our bid package for price and how we would deliver the vehicles. And just a couple of weeks ago, we were selected to be the sole source for the production.
So just to be clear, so you were working on desert racing, and then you got called into this?
Yeah. I'd like to say we're just that genius, but if you think about the cool thing about this is, think 9 passengers and the weight that goes in it. The Army is very interested in commercial off the shelf and bringing OEs back in, because they really want to get that technology feed and the quality that comes from an OE. So there has been discussions around where and when would we plug in. If you think about, a 9 passenger, you're over what would typically be a Colorado GVW. Well, we were racing in the desert. We developed an entire portfolio of parts that takes a Colorado ZR2 and upgrades the suspension. And Chad Hall actually races that vehicle and has raced it for 11 consecutive races and finished all of those. One of 4 vehicles that actually finished all of the races with production-based parts. And we released those parts for production. You can walk into a Chevrolet dealership and buy every one of the underpinnings of this vehicle. And you can build your own ISV vehicle minus the body. And so we had that combination of parts. It was a direct plug and play in the performance. We just have absolute confidence in the performance of the chassis and suspension on this vehicle.
So, Mark, could you talk about really what military spec is in a light tactical vehicle? I'm kind of a military vehicle history nut, and I remember back in the 70s with the Cuck V program, which was commercial off the shelf. Dodge delivered some wasn't Ram at the time, just Dodge D series pickups. GM followed that up with CK pickups, and they were really relegated more to base use because they might have had 24-volt electrical systems, but basically it was a stock pickup truck that really wasn't a combat-ready vehicle. And of course now, a standard Colorado frame is probably 10 times the strength of what previous are beefy, the whole 9 yards. But last time I was over in TACCOM, everything was being up armored. And to me, that was the delineation between a commercial off the shelf product and something that was ready for the battlefield. So I noticed this vehicle doesn't have any doors, for example, and we're in a kind of an IED environment. What makes this a military spec vehicle?
Yeah, probably the easiest way to answer that or explain this is how I learned it when we were at Fort Bragg. And one of the things I had to do was teach the soldiers how to operate the vehicle. And we went off onto their proving grounds, their test vehicle or their test areas. And I was running down one of the 2 tracks, and the guy said, we showed him how to operate everything, and then we swapped so I could be a passenger. The first thing he did was cut off that 2 track and just start blasting through the woods. I'm like, whoa, I saw a sign back there, watch out for unexploded ordnances. You sure you want to do this? But it made it really clear to me is that this vehicle isn't the normal path in and out, right? This is really like, you need to get people, around the main strips where you'd have your IUDs, etc. It is unarmored to get troops in and out fast, and speed to battle, speed out of battle is the key. I mean, don't get me wrong, the suspension's designed, you talk about military specs. I mean, this vehicle does have to do a low velocity airdrop. So it does have to be parachuted in. And so, there's a lot of analysis work that we do to make certain that it can handle that landing. And it's a big hit, trust me on that, when it hits. So, there is a lot of requirements that are unique. So far, the vehicles perform extremely well in all of those.
It reminds me kind of like a Navy SEAL or a commando vehicle, like fast in, fast out, shoot them up and get out of there.
Yeah. That's probably the things I'll never know what they do with it, right?
You've got those multimatic shocks on it, though, right? So landing has got to be a whole lot easier than anything else the Army's had.
Yeah, John, I mean, if you think about it, the game changer in this suspension, if you think about what makes it what it is, our partners in Multimatic and the DSSV damper was absolutely a game changer. And not only does it take the big hits, driver comfort. One of the things that the Army is concerned about is driver fatigue and how beat up somebody gets going long distance into battle. So, that if you've ever driven a ZR2, it has amazing off-road capability, but it's a great daily driver in that, the actual inputs into the body are very low. So, that was one of the big enablers. The other one is our jout shocks that we have in the racing, for a secondary damper that takes those big hits. And those are bolt-on parts that we sell, and they're part of the whole racing package. When you really make a mistake, and that's the key to desert racing, is not just blasting 100 miles an hour across the desert. It's the thing that you didn't see that you hit at 100 miles an hour. That I've hit things out there that I thought was going to blow the windshield out of the front of the truck, and they go back and we used half of the energy of the suspension. So I mean, there's key things that absorbs that massive amounts of energy. And, those things are certainly the key players in making the vehicle able to drop from a helicopter.
Mark,
are there iterations?
Go
ahead.
I was going to say, we were talking about diesel earlier. So this has is this the same 2.8 liter Duramax that's in the ZR2 Bison?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the entire, if I lift the body off of this, the entire, I call it from the waist down, is a Colorado ZR2. That's the 2.8 liter. That's the 6-speed automatic. It's the same transfer case that's in the ZR2. It's the same electronic locking differentials that's in the ZR2. Those are truly commercial off-the-shelf parts. Essentially, every single part of this vehicle, from that waist down, you can walk into the dealership and buy. The only thing we do different is a custom tune to that diesel engine to give it a little bit more power and to deal with the JP8 fuel.
So, as a percentage, how much is this of a production vehicle? 70%, 80%?
Yeah. So the standards by the Army standards, this is 90% commercial off-the-shelf parts. So it's either our parts or something you can order online or get from the defense supply base. So, it's a really high percentage of commercial off the shelf.
Which makes field repairability really, really great for this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And cost. I mean, taxpayers, we're all that, right? I hope. But, could be why you're in the basement.
There's not a lot of Chevy dealers out in the desert, though. So I think that, you might have some issues.
Yeah. But it controls cost too. If you think about it, if that's a part that we sell through a dealership, that contains what that cost is. And the more scale that goes with it, the tooling's already paid for. I mean, there's just all these wins, the supplier quality that goes with it. It's just a long-term supply of the parts, it goes on. I mean, it truly is, commercial off the shelf is truly a game changer in this segment. I mean, just, it's a win for the Army and again, for our taxpayers.
Mark, you just know that hardcore off-roaders are going to want this vehicle.
Yes. Yeah. I love going to the races when I can get there and just see, it's so cool that the Best in Desert series, you're starting to see more and more ZR2s there. And, they have rallies that get to the race and it's just growing. And, it's so cool that this stuff's the same things that they could go to the store and buy and put together and know that confidence. I just love the heritage and the ties back and forth between the two.
Mark, is this design kind of like the current Humvee? There's millions of iterations of this thing, and an ambulance, a gun platform, a commercial carrier. Is that the plan for this chassis?
Absolutely. I think, getting our foot in the door, getting it started. Right now, our focus is purely on, we've got 120 days from program award before we provide our first 8 production vehicles. So, that's a whole new record for us and pressure for us. But we are simultaneously, we have teams looking at that and saying, what else can we do? And our business development team, is reaching out, and they're getting a lot of calls from different areas, of different configurations. And I just think this, as you can imagine, it's pretty much limitless. And we can really drag this, we call it architectures in this form, into a lot of directions.
So with this diesel engine, the military version, does it have to have SCR and all the after treatment that a stock vehicle?
Oh, no. No.
You're still with us, Mark.
Yeah. Maybe we're not with him.
Or,
Oh, okay. I'm creating an account now all of a sudden. So I can't see it, but
oh,
I'm sorry. I kind of missed the acronym SCR.
Oh,
all the after treatment stuff that
for emissions reduction for emissions.
Yes, sorry.
Diesel after treatment. Does a military diesel truck still have to have that?
Yeah, no, it's obviously the primary focuses for them is reliability, power, working with the JP8 fuel. So it's a secondary requirement for certain.
Mark, where do you make these? Is it near the plant where the Colorado's made, or how are you going to do that?
Yeah, so when we built our prototypes and our bid sample, we built those out of Michigan, Southeast Michigan, in one of our facilities here. And we have not yet announced our production location, so we'll be getting that out pretty soon.
So, Mark, what was more of a challenge for you, the Bonneville Salt Flats or the Aberdeen Proving Ground?
That's a good question. One I was a little bit more familiar with. Racing's been in my blood forever. I mean, raced Formula cars for 17 years. The whole Aberdeen testing and defense area has been new, and it's been a learning opportunity for me. So definitely the challenge of Aberdeen, I would say, was a lot more. And it's kind of neat. I think that racing mentality is definitely the thing that keeps us successful. A lot of the guys on the team, girls on the team, have that background because the same team does a lot of things here in my organization. So that racer mentality and customer focus has been really some of our strengths in reacting fast to any issues that we found.
Hey, I heard that Mark Royce got to drive this thing, and he was getting it airborne too. Is that right?
Yeah. As soon as that jump that you see in there is Mark driving me in the passenger seat, and it's kind of a funny story because we were shaking it down before it went to Fort Bragg, and I told my team, I'm like, hey, fundamentally, if anybody breaks this, probably got to be the chief engineer because everybody else is going to feel bad, and I'll get over it. No, but. So we were looking for something to put high loads in it. So that's our airbag bump ran backwards. Hey, let's try that. What do you think speed wise? Let's try 25 or 30. Yeah, it's 5 feet in the air when I landed. So it landed like it was in a pillow. So the next phone call was to Ken Morris and Mark Royce. You guys got to come check this out. This is amazing. So that was him putting it through its test.
Did you guys encounter any Aberdeen Proving Ground or military kind of test specs that would be worth carrying over out to Milford in terms of testing trucks in the future?
That's a great question. I think we've seen some results of the test. When they take it, it's kind of behind closed doors a little bit for us. So now that we've got the program award, we can talk more about the details of the testing. But it's certainly by looking at the vehicles and checking wear and things, we could see that it was going through some things that we haven't done before. So yeah, I think there's definitely some avenues for improvement that we see coming forward that we can bring back in.
Hey, Mark, we're going to have to wrap up this segment, but really cool having you on. Really cool vehicle. When you guys do some other iterations, you got to come back on the show and talk about them when you can.
Absolutely. Maybe we can do it live, maybe in the air.
I'm all for that. I would love to get a chance to drive this thing.
Yeah, looks great.
Yeah.
And thanks for saving us tax dollars. I appreciate that.
Agreed.
Mr. Number one.
Right.
Well, thanks again, Mark. We're going to take
Well,
a
thanks
quick
for having
commercial
me. I really
break
appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're back talking all things automotive. John
All right,
McElroy, Gary Vasilash, Lindsay Brooke.
All right, so we don't have an official number, but I knew that we were going to have Lindsay on the show today, and knowing what a powertrain nerd he is, I want to ask you guys this question, okay? So in model year 2000, turbochargers were found on approximately 1% of commercial light vehicles that we would buy, not ISVs. Okay, so we're going to put those aside. 2019, what's the percentage?
Commercial light, commercial vehicles or
Light duty vehicles that we could go to our local Chevy store and buy right now.
cars and trucks. Cars and trucks.
Correct.
Or just trucks.
Well, so it's sort of interesting. No, it would be cars and trucks. And it's interesting that back in 2000, apparently they were just on cars by and large. So that 1% is largely just cars.
33%.
I'm going to say 40.
Wow. See, I knew that Lindsay was the guy who knew all about this. 34%.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's move on from that. So, so earlier this week, Waymo announced that it would be working exclusively with FCA as its preferred partner for the development of and testing of class 1 through light commercial vehicles, i.e. trucks. And that the two companies would be working very carefully on integrating this into the Ram ProMaster van. And then FCA announced that Waymo would be its exclusive strategic partner for level 4 autonomous vehicles. Has FCA sort of trumped the other two guys in town by doing this?
I don't know. First of all, John Krafchick was on the record fairly recently, kind of sticking it in the ribs of Elon Musk a little bit when Elon was talking about level 4 capability. And John said, I don't know. Actually, Elon was talking about level 5 capability. And John says, I don't even know about level 4 capability, maybe level 3. I don't know. I mean, I think the commercial vehicle market is probably the place where AVs are going to make their biggest appearance initially. So,
You're mixed on it. So what do you think, John?
Well, I hadn't caught that. Now, FCA said Waymo would be its exclusive supplier, or did Waymo say it's exclusively going to work with FCA?
So Waymo said that it would work exclusively with FCA on the light duty trucks. FCA said it would work exclusively with Waymo for its autonomous technology. So it had been working, say, with the company Voyage down at the villages in Florida, and apparently that's going to be over, and it's just going to be working with Waymo.
Well, that's kind of interesting. It almost sounds like Waymo's not finding other customers. What happened to JLR? They had been working with them too, right?
Right, but they're working with JLR on passenger. So Waymo will continue with others in terms of cars and SUVs and trucks and light vehicles, but for the commercial part of things, it would be FCA in the the ProMaster City and things like that.
Well, okay. So thanks for the clarification. What I would say is obviously FCA is not spending the billions of dollars developing its own AV technology that, say, a General Motors and a Ford are. On the other hand, everybody knows that the real money to be made in autonomous vehicles is going to be who gets to monetize the data flowing in and out of that vehicle as it goes around autonomously. My understanding, and this is probably third or fourth hand, is the reason that Waymo and Ford did not get together several years ago. Remember, we were all out at CES and expecting Waymo and Ford to announce some sort of partnership. It never happened. My understanding is because Ford was not going to have full access to that data. Waymo wanted that. And so when you ask, did FCA come out ahead by partnering with a supplier rather than developing it in-house? I don't think we know that yet. What are the terms of the deal? Does FCA get the data or not? And if it doesn't, then GM and Ford and any others who are automakers who are developing this technology in-house are going to come out ahead.
Yeah, my question.
I say FCA is ahead. I say FCA wins on this.
I think John brings up a great point on this. If commercial use, whether it be shuttles or delivery or cargo, is going to be the first kind of widespread use of this technology, you've got that middleman. You've got that, Hertz or FedEx or whoever the actual operator is. What is their cut of the data mine, so to speak, in that? I mean, it can't all go back to the OEM, the vehicle OEM. So I think that's an interesting question.
I think it'd all go back to Waymo.
Well, but Waymo isn't going to be running shuttle services and package delivery. There's got to be somebody in the middle there between FCA delivering the vehicle, Waymo having the technology, the sensing and AI technology and navigation technology, and then someone in the middle there being your guy that delivers your pizza.
And if he can make billions of dollars, God bless that guy who's delivering that pizza to me.
Gary, it's interesting, what you're saying about CraftCheck, who really knows this technology, obviously, being very skeptical of what Elon Musk is saying. Because yesterday with their earnings announcement and everything, Elon made it very clear, adamant, they are going to unlock full self-driving this year. And he's saying that you'll be able to earn as a Tesla owner up to $11,000 a year on your car. He says Tesla is going to earn $100,000 in revenue per vehicle when this starts to happen. So let's see who's right. It's going to be fascinating to see how this plays out.
Yeah, it's interesting.
All right, John. So you opened Pandora's box here. We do have to talk about Tesla. So they had $104 million in net earnings, of which $428 million were credits that it sold to other companies. So how do you feel about that number? And it was the fourth quarter in a row that they did report some earnings.
Yeah, look, a lot of people are saying, if they hadn't sold credits, they would have lost money. And that's true. But selling credits has always been part of Tesla's business plan. Always.
Yeah, big part of it. Yeah.
And I don't have any problem with them building a business plan around being able to sell credits. It's available for any other automaker to go out and do the very same thing. And so, yeah, I'm sure even Tesla would love to be making money just selling cars and, the credits being icing on the cake. But look what's going on in the world right now. I mean, it's the only car company that's coming out and said, hey, we made money. So I cut them a lot of slack in this regard. I think what they've achieved is rather extraordinary. It looks like they're going to get listed on the S&P index. And if they do that, the stock price is going to go a whole lot higher, because once you make the index, anybody who invests in the index has to buy your stock. Institutional investors like to buy those indexes. So, it looks to me like Tesla's on a roll right now.
Well, and he is delivering cars too.
And he dropped a couple of things too in the announcement yesterday that nobody seems to have picked up on yet. He hinted at 2 more models that are yet to come. He said they're going to do a compact vehicle, and that's what he called it, vehicle. And he said they're going to do a higher passenger capacity vehicle, which to me sounds like a minivan. But in terms of the S, the X, the 3, the Y, the Roadster, the Semi. What am I missing here?
Pickup truck.
The pickup truck, the Cybertruck.
Cybertruck.
So 2 more models coming after that as well.
Yeah, it was interesting. He also said that he thought that his vehicles were too expensive, that he needed to get some affordability.
Yeah, and Gary, that's a great point, and that comes back to what we're talking about on data. We had Hao Tai Tang on this show 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
And he said, hey, look, the business model of the industry is changing. It's no longer about just selling a car and that's it. You made your money as a car company and you pray that the customer comes back in 4, 5, 6 years and buys another one. It's a relationship model now where you continue to sell things, updates and over-the-air updates and other services and the like. And so if you believe what Elon is saying, that once you get to this full self-driving and you can put your Tesla in a fleet and have it earn money for you, he's going to be like Google. Google, they don't care about making phones. The phones are the razors. He wants to sell the razor blades, and the razor blades is the data. So the more cars that get out there, the more money he's going to make. I mean, conceivably, he could even get to the point where he loses money on cars, selling them as cars, and makes a boatload of money through all the data and services. So that's why I think he is so keen on getting the cost of his cars down, because he knows that they're going to be making money for years to come, even as used cars.
Do you guys think this multi-person, multi-passenger vehicle could be him wanting to get into the AV pod market that is, why not make a Tesla version of that as well?
Yeah, I hadn't even thought of that. But, the GM Cruise, what do they call their vehicle? Whatever.
The Origin.
The Origin. Thank you. So yeah, maybe he's talking about a Tesla Origin.
Yeah.
So he also announced that they'll be making their new factory in Austin, Texas. And I thought it was interesting that today Nikola broke ground on their factory in Coolidge, Arizona. I wonder if the timing of this was sort of planned, that so Nikola could sort of step on Elon's announcement of the Gigafactory in Austin. What do you guys think?
I don't know. And Nikola, Gary, announced some production volumes too with that, didn't they? They said 30,000 units, 35,000 units, which seemed to be pretty big. I don't know what a typical Class 8 truck plant cranks out, but that seemed to be pretty ambitious.
Yeah, so they said 35,000 Class 8 commercial trucks running 2 shifts could be made in this factory that they're talking about.
Could be made, right.
1 million square foot manufacturing facility.
Yeah.
So I'm with you, Lindsay. I had no idea. When I read that number, I thought, wow, this is really quite astonishing. So I looked to see what Class 8 trucks were like. So in 2018, Daimler's Freightliner division sold about 91,000 Class 8 trucks, which gave it 36% of the U.S. Class 8 market. And so that's the number one manufacturer in Class 8.
So Class 8 is like, I guess, something like that.
Yeah, so it would be just under 300,000.
300,000, yeah.
So, John, do you think that our friend Trevor Milton is going to be able to produce 35,000 hydrogen vehicle Class 8 trucks anytime soon?
Not anytime soon. No. I mean, when he talks about 35,000 a year on 2 shifts, they're not going to start out at that level. All we know for sure right now is he's got an order of 800 trucks from Anheuser-Busch. I'm not all that into the details of Nikola to know whether there are other fleets or companies who have committed to taking orders on them. My guess is once he starts building, and if Anheuser-Busch puts them out there and it looks like it's working well and everybody's hitting their cost numbers, truck fleets are going to come out of the woodwork looking for it. Mm-hmm. But, if Trevor's smart, and he is going to start out slow, make sure things go right, and build up slowly. But I don't think they're going to, open the doors and start building 35,000 right off the bat.
So I mentioned Freightliner, mentioned Daimler, and we were talking about earnings, and so Daimler, and this is globally, reported a $1.9 billion Q2 loss. What is that saying about what's going on in the world, John?
Says that this industry is still in a lot of trouble, and we're soon going to hear other automakers announcing what their Q2 earnings were. Remember, Ford's guidance was it's going to lose $5 billion, more than twice as much as Daimler has. So we got to see what's going to happen here with the industry, because even though we've seen sales come back somewhat, now in the United States, we've had this massive surge over the last month. My guess is July car sales are not going to look as good as they did in June. And I still remember what Mary Barra said, a month and a half ago, that car sales are going to be pegged to how the United States responds to COVID and whether or not we follow the CDC protocols. We're not doing it. My guess is sales are not going to be so good for July.
My first thought when I saw those Daimler numbers, Gary, was, what was it, 2015, 2014, that Daimler owned about 5 million shares of Tesla stock. Which
10%.
Yeah, Tesla's market cap is like $270 billion. And I think that'd be like $7-8 billion, something like that today, if they had held on to that, really.
No,
So
Lindsay, it'd be way more. So, I just did a deep dive into this. So in 2009, Daimler bought 10% of Tesla.
Right.
For $50 million. And they wanted to use Tesla batteries in a electric Mercedes B-Class.
Yeah.
And they also wanted to get an insider view of how the Silicon Valley startup was operating. And what they walked away from it was, boy, these guys don't follow any of the rules. They don't have any of the quality gates in their PD process. They'll put something out there, and if it's not working right, they'll just keep iterating it until they get it right. They'll spend way beyond their budget in the PD process. And Mercedes in 2014 decided, that's it. This company's going nowhere. We're out of here. It was
about 5 million shares, right? Something like that.
I don't remember the number of shares. I do know it was 10%.
10%, right.
That $50 million, if they still had 10% today, would be worth $30 billion.
$30 billion. Okay. So I don't know what Mercedes is worth, but they should have held on to that, really.
Oh, I'm sure they're kicking themselves. Kicking themselves.
Dr. Z.
Well, he's gone, and he's probably happy he's no longer there. But
right.
So the company is talking about job cuts, and so globally they have about 300,000 people that work for Daimler, and so they're talking about perhaps 20,000 people losing their jobs, or a German publication, Manager Magazine, reported yesterday that maybe it's going to be as many as 30,000 people will lose their jobs. John, to go back to your point, I mean, is this indicative of what we're going to see from other companies going forward?
I believe so. I mean, look at the changes that COVID has wrought here. Business travel has absolutely collapsed. So, the daily rental companies are out. As I keep pointing out, in the U.S. alone, they buy 2 million new vehicles a year. So right off the bat, we're going from a 17 million SAR to a 15 million SAR. And I'm not going to say that that's going to be permanent, but it's going to be long lasting. On top of that, we have so many people working from home. I go back to Hao Tai-Teng. He said the productivity in the company's actually gone up with people staying at home. I've talked to a lot of folks in this industry who said, man, I don't miss my daily commute and rush hour traffic. And so I think going forward, we're just not going to see people driving as much. Their cars are going to last longer. They're not going to need to buy as many. And the industry is going to have to adjust. And I think Daimler announcing 20,000 jobs gone, maybe as much as 30,000 jobs gone, are looking at the reality of what's going to happen on a global basis for the industry.
And of course, the question is what are all these people going to do across the industry? Really, I mean, mass production, and we the three of us have seen dramatically reduced need for people over the time we've been, as automation comes in, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, this is still a big hit, though, to towns and tax bases and everything.
And look, think on top of that, the impact of electric cars. You know, it decimates the internal combustion engine part of the business. It takes out all kinds of labor content in final assembly, as long as you have an assembly plant dedicated to making only electrics. So this industry's in for a big reorganization.
And as Paul Eichenberg said on a show that we did recently with him, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, just look at the content of an electric vehicle versus the content of an internal combustion engine, and all of the things you don't need to manufacture, which basically means, you know, all of the people that worked at all of the companies that used to make all of those things are no longer necessarily going to be doing things.
Yeah, remember Paul said, and I don't have the exact numbers, but the ratio is right. An ICE vehicle has 110 forgings. An EV has 10.
Yeah, it's tough. So you mentioned Mary Barra earlier and what she was saying. So she was quoted in an interview from earlier this week that she said, "We think it's going to be a relatively short-lived recession, but we have a long way to go because we went to a pretty low base. The new outbreaks do pose potential setbacks. We're hopeful that the U.S. economy will be back to 90% of pre-pandemic levels early next year, but there's a lot of uncertainty." Is this going to be a short-lived recession?
I think there's a lot of hope in that early next year, 90%, Gary, with all the things that we thought that experts thought they knew about this virus going into the summertime. And now we've seen what's happened with that. There's just so many variables here. I mean, we're all kind of playing it as we cover the industry in kind of a day-to-day thing. And how you make plans on a enormous capital basis like that, I don't know. I think that's really kind of hopeful.
You know, I was reading something, JP Morgan Chase, I think it was, their economists are forecasting actually a fairly quick recovery by next year. But I'm not sure I totally buy that. And, you know, when Mary Barra says that the economy's coming back 90%, we're roughly a $20 trillion economy. That means we're leaving a $2 trillion hole in the economy. That's a lot of jobs. That's a lot of livelihoods. You know, 90% back sounds pretty good until you start to think about, yeah, well, what's the 10%? Well, how much does that represent? So I'm one of those who I'm a little bit more pessimistic. I don't think we're coming back that fast or to that level.
So earlier this week, also Reid Bigland, who was recently, as recently as April, with FCA, and we'd had him on the show once upon a time with the when they were launching the Stelvio, the Alfa Romeo Stelvio. So Bigland is a guy who's done Ram trucks and Maseratis. I mean, so the guy's been all over that company, and so he was talking to the Society of Automotive Analysts, and he was really upbeat. He thought that in the third and fourth quarter of this year, the economy will be really, and I quote him, rock and rollin'. And he said that basically because of the government this time providing people with money to keep things going, that he thought that it would be coming back to normal fairly quickly. Now, I'm with you, John. I'm sort of looking at it from the point of view of, well, yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are getting money, but I'm not so sure a lot of those people are going to be going out to their local car dealer in, you know, Los Angeles County to buy a new car anytime soon.
I got to tell you guys, our little family, everything's paid off, and in this environment, it's a great feeling. I'm so glad I don't have a monthly payment on anything new. And there's, many vehicles I'd like to own. Go down and buy something new, but I don't want to be in that situation right now. And, I mean, payment from the government isn't going to carry a car note.
Yeah, I hope I'm wrong. I really do hope that we're rock and rolling by the fourth quarter. You know, we know that there's another stimulus bill, although as I call it, it's not a stimulus bill. It's a bailout bill for all of us. But that'll help tremendously. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm being overly pessimistic. I really would love to see the country and the economy come roaring back fast.
Okay, so let's talk about something a little fun. So it came out this week officially that Ford had come out with the Mustang Mach-E 1400, a electric vehicles with 7 motors. Just a crazy vehicle. So John, you had seen this vehicle earlier than this week. So tell us about what you saw.
Yeah. No, I didn't see the vehicle. How Tang, going back here, how we keep bringing him back up. He had posted something on LinkedIn that had a video, and it just said, "Hey, what are these guys doing?" or something to that effect. So of course, got me to click it. And it's a guy with a cell phone camera walking through this forest, and you can see what looks like a gigantic skid pad at a proving grounds through the trees. And as he gets closer, you see there's this car running up and down, drifting, smoke pouring off it, wickedly fast, making this hideous scream as it went. So instantly I knew it's electric. And it was all a tease. I mean, it was Ford public relations, I'm sure, setting the whole thing up to make it look like some spy photographer had stumbled across this. It was a total setup, but it sucked me into it and got me interested in this vehicle.
So those who are interested, so it's on YouTube. It's by somebody named Carolina Guy, and it's a 2-minute 29-second video. And John, as you say, so he's in a pine stand of trees, and it seems to be very odd that sometimes he's only able to look and we see pine branches. At other times, the vehicle parks right in front of this person. I mean, it's just like,
it's a gap in the pine needles, perfectly framed. I'll accuse Mike Levine from Ford Public Relations of being the guy who put this all together. I'm just saying that, but
right.
Clearly Ford wants to generate a tremendous amount of hype about the Mustang Mach-E, and 7 motors. Lindsay, how do you even package 7 electric motors to get? Sounds to me like one motor is connected to another motor that's connected to an axle.
I think they're using the seat track motors and the window regulator motors. Everything's tied into this.
No, it's so they have 3 on the front axle and 3 on and 4 on the back, and so that's how they're doing it. And I guess that these motors are stacked like so they're round motors, and they're stacked next to one another. So you get 1,400 horsepower out of this thing. Of course, I sort of wonder is that, John, building excitement for the the civilian Mustang Mach-E. I mean, after someone sees that, are they going to be satisfied with just one electric motor?
No, probably not. And you gotta wonder if Ford's done the GT. The last version of it. What was it? It was over $400,000, $500,000. So a few years down the road, to help goose sales of the Mach-E once it's been launched and in the market for a year or two, maybe you come out with something like that. Very low volume, very high price, creates a halo image for the vehicle. Why not?
They're just taking a page out of the horsepower to it, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You see, if I had done that video in the pine stand way back in the woods.
Oh, we're losing you, Lindsay.
Yeah, I keep losing him.
He sees Sasquatch. Sasquatch comes out and gets into a Bronco and drives away and tied the whole thing in.
I love that idea.
You may have missed your calling, Lindsay. So So to the point of electric vehicles that everyone seems to be investing so much in. So the state of New York said they're going to spend $750 million on EV infrastructure. 50,000 charging stations they want to install. And this investment is going to be through 2025. So they're going to be spending this money, like now. Is that the sort of thing that's going to be needed to goose the acceptance of EVs among regular folks that aren't going to buy a 1,400 horsepower Mustang Mach E, whatever it is?
When I saw that, I thought New York must have a lot of money. All the money states are going to be spending now with everything that's going on with the health situation, with civil disobedience, et cetera, and then all the after effect of that, and then to think about electric cars. I think that's kind of an odd one, but maybe they've got more money than we know.
Well, apparently it's going to be funded by the state's investor-owned utility companies. So people, we're still using electricity.
One of the things too is New York. Let's define what we mean by charging stations, because one thing that New York City did was hold a contest to figure out who could come up with literally thousands of charging outlets in the city. And it was won by a German company. I don't remember the name right now, but they looked around the city and went, "Oh my gosh, you guys got street lights everywhere. The poles on the sidewalk, all we have to do is tie into that electricity and we can have all kinds of, charging stations for electric cars." So when they announced tens of thousands of these things, I'm guessing a lot of them are going to be level 1 chargers.
All right, so here is a final thing, because we're going to be needing to wrap up here in a couple of minutes. So what do you guys think about the new naming strategy that Cadillac is using, where everything will end with "ick," like lyric? I just find it to be odd. We saw Lincoln say, okay, we want to have normal names for things like Aviator and Corsair and Navigator. And you could say, well, they're doing this sort of nautical flight sort of thing. And maybe that becomes too precious at some point. But, having this thing where, they're going to force names for their vehicles. Apparently they're electric vehicles. They have this IQ on the end. Seems odd to me. What do you guys think?
I think I just keep missing Fleetwood and DeVille and Biarritz.
Are they going to change the name to Escaladic? I don't know. Look, clearly the numbers and letters are so confusing that they're using right now. CT this and XT that. And, I got to stop and think a minute about what it means. Lincoln ran into the same problem. So I like the idea that they're going back to names, but to force every name to end in IQ sounds forced. My prediction is long term, it's not going to stick.
How long is long term?
Before this decade's out.
I think you're giving them too much. I think it'll be changed before then. It's as you say, it's forced, and it becomes very difficult to do. And I don't know that would make it more evident to someone what a lyric is versus a CT4 or a CT5 or an XT4 or an XT5 or CT6 or what have you.
Yeah, the current nomenclature seems like it only has been around for not very long, really.
No.
Yeah, it hasn't been. Gary, you got anything else? Because we're going to have to wrap up, unfortunately.
All right, just a quick one. So supplier Bosch, number one supplier in the world of automotive stuff, basically said that it is going to take 17,000 of its people, put them all together, and they will begin to work on digital things. And this is happening like in January. How important is digital technology to this industry when its number one supplier is doing this? Lindsay.
Very important. Is that just Bosch Automotive, or is that digitizing all its consumer goods and so forth and so on?
Just automotive.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of touching everything, really. I'm sure they'll be able to find work for all these people in various areas. And the German industry's done a great job in terms of transforming people that worked on mechanical systems into electrified systems and getting them into what's coming next. They've got a really rigorous training program, and they're much more unified on this issue than I think we are.
Yeah, I would add to that and say it just ties in with everything that we've been talking about. The old machining, stamping, welding, there's no growth in that. The growth is all going to be on the digital side.
Right. And that means digital. It means digital things like 3D printing. I mean, we still have to create physical parts, but there's digital aspects to that too. So, a lot of their products have moldings and have stampings and have castings, and that's all digital now. So, yeah, they'll do it.
Yeah. Hey, look, we're going to have to wrap it up at this point. But Lindsay, great having you on the show.
Hey, John, thanks so much.
Yeah, it was cool having Mark Dickens on talking about their new efforts.
That was great. I can't wait to see and maybe even drive that vehicle.
He offered, so we're going to follow up.
Yeah.
Hold him to it.
Yeah.
Real good.
Oh, sorry, guys. They're all owned by the military.
Yeah. That's right. Okay, Gary, right. I'll see you again next week. And Thanks, everybody, for having tuned in.
Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, your journey, our passion, and by Borg Warner, propulsion solutions that support a clean, energy-efficient world.
Visit our website, Autoline.tv, where you can watch us live Thursday afternoons. Get your daily fix with Autoline Daily and in-depth analysis and interviews with Autoline This Week. There's all that and much more at Autoline.tv.